Speaking of the end of democracy, just a joke. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Elon Musk making some big moves over at Twitter. Let's go ahead and put this up there. And Elon is saying that the $8 a month check system is fully going to be instituted. He tweets, Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who has or who doesn't have a blue check mark is bullshit. Power to the people, blue for $8 a month. Price adjusted by country proportionate to purchasing power parity. You will also get priority in replies, mentions, and search, which is essential to defeat spam and scam. Ability to post long video and audio. Half as many ads. Paywall bypass for publishers willing to work with us. This will give Twitter a revenue stream to reward content creators. There will be a secondary tag below the name for someone who is a public figure, which is already the case for politicians. So let's go ahead and put the next one, which is up there on the screen as well, just to continue reading from what Elon is saying. At the same time, on the content moderation front, and this is where I'm starting to get a little dubious about what's happening, he says, I've been talking to civil society leaders like Jonathan Greenblatt over at the ADL, Yael Eisenstadt also at the ADL, some quote-unquote civil society leaders. Anytime I hear that term, I'm like, these sound like very fake jobs, and if you look at the rest of the people who are charged there, you include people from the George W. Bush Presidential Library and other quote-unquote democracy experts. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and be pretty dubious of whatever the hell that group is. And look, I've already said why I don't think $8 a month for a blue check mark makes any sense. I have no and the irony is I'm not one of those people who thinks Twitter should be free. I think people should have to pay, but a hell of a lot more than $8 a month relative to the amount of followers. I've laid all that out, and apparently they are looking into that. However, let's put even that aside because I don't even think it really matters. They're trying to frame it as a populist thing. We'll see. I mean, I'm curious to see how many people will actually pay for it. I just don't
know how many people are going to pay for it. Because,
I'm actually curious. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you look at, I think it's analogous to our business where we have, close to 900,000, YouTube subscribers.
Yes.
And definitely not close to that in terms of paid premium subscribers.
Yes.
So there was a poll that was done that there were 10% of blue checks who said they would pay to have their blue check. And that's probably the high watermark because it's very different to tell a pollster, in theory, I guess I pay for it. It's another thing to get out your credit card, put it in, and, then your credit card number gets lost and gets changed. It's a totally different thing to then actually go and do the work to pay that $8 a month. So there's two metrics here with the blue check plan. Number one, is it a good business idea? And number two, is a good idea in terms of the free speech goals that we were told were at the core of Elon's takeover of Twitter here. I think it fails on both counts. I could be wrong on the business side, but when you think about it, first of all, how much money is this really going to raise? What do we find? There's 390,000 active blue check.
So I did the math. So that's 10%. It's only 3.8 million a year.
That's nothing.
Right.
It's nothing. That is a drop in the bucket. Meanwhile, we know the big problem with Twitter that Elon was pointing to too, by the way, before this deal closed, is the fact that many of their most active users, previously most active and largest users, are not using the platform anymore. 90% of the content comes from 10% of the users. Now, are those all blue checks? No, but a disproportionate number of them are. So you're antagonizing the core group of people that makes your platform, that is doing the most content creation, that makes your platform interesting and worthwhile. You're antagonizing them and sort of forcing a further decline in terms of the amount of content, amount of engagement. So I think it fails on the business front because those numbers are just pathetic, and then you're antagonizing some of your key people. But I also think it fails on the free speech front, especially when you start talking about and you can pay to get priority in terms of your mentions and your replies. That the best platform in terms of actual free speech and people being able to actually have a voice, which is what Twitter was at its best, is neutral, right? The minute that you become like YouTube and you have these algorithms in and you have some creators that get better treatment than other creators and you make it this sort of pay-to-play system, that is a hit to free speech. And not just because it's literally paid speech, but it screws up the ecosystem of making it a neutral platform experience. So the fact that they already had instituted this thing where it's no longer just what's the order of the tweets that came in, that they're surfacing what we think that you're gonna that leads to already a problem in terms of free speech. And then when you add to this new blue check system where it's like you can pay to get favorable treatment in your mentions and replies, that's an issue. The other thing that I would say about the blue check plan is the blue check thing, it did become like this weird sort of like status symbol situation. The original idea wasn't a bad idea, though, which is that on a platform where people can be anonymous and where you have bots, where you have spam, where you have trolls, all this stuff, the blue check was supposed to indicate this person is who they say they are. Now, reforming that system would be a great idea. It'd be better if you had more blue checks where you could see more clearly that people are who they are advertising themselves to be. That would be an improvement. But instead, what you're doing is shifting the blue check system to just basically be an indication of who's willing to pay for clout. So that's why even though, you know, for me, $8 a month, it wouldn't be a big deal. Like there's no way in hell I would pay for this because ultimately I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm the person who wants to pay for clout and let me get my blue check mark. I think it's gross.
Well, I also just think that, look, from a business, like we're not going to invest in that because we're not going to get any value from it, right? Which is like fundamentally there is no actual value. Now, if there were actual value, like if we weren't able to tweet, this gets to why I think Twitter for Enterprise is a way better idea. If we were not able to, let's say, promote our stuff without paying, then yeah, would pay because we pay for anything whenever we need to like access to our direct audience, like on MailChimp or whatever. Like the point is that Twitter itself is, I think, misunderstanding the actual value. I've laid out this a million times, so I won't belabor the point. Let's go and put this next part up on the screen, though, and this gets to why I think content moderation is really a big problem and why they're not thinking 100% yet clearly about it. So there was a lot of kerfuffle online over the, quote, community notes feature after the White House tweeted out that seniors are getting the biggest increase in their Social Security checks in 10 years through President Biden's leadership. There was actually a fact check on it from a community notes that said seniors will receive that increase due to the annual cost of living adjustment, which is based on inflation, aka nothing that Joe Biden has actually done. So Elon replied to that for somebody who was celebrating the fact check and said that the community notes feature is awesome. Our goal is to make Twitter the most accurate source of information on Earth without regard to political affiliation. I actually take a great issue with that because even though I enjoy the fact checked, here's what I said. All fact checking or context is editorial or political in nature.
Yes.
When you pick or choose who or what or how to fact check, it is a fool's errand because the original problem at Twitter was the editorial choice of ban Trump, but put a label, whatever. And it also failed spectacularly at Facebook. In my opinion, the best policy is to just simply let people say anything that they want within the bounds of the law and then let others decide whether it's true or not. As in, you or I are welcome to reply and say, hey, this is bullshit, and we can make fun of you on our show.
Tweet it, reply to it. You can look through those and see what other people are saying.
And guess what? The side effect, actually, is that the most accurate information and true information comes from the total discussion around the issue at hand, which is that everybody can say that the White House tweet is a lie because of X context, Y context. We can explain it in a full 20-minute segment here on Breaking Points if we want, or we can reply to it with a snarky tweet as well. Twitter should never be in the business of picking or choosing what is true or what is not. I believe that, by the way, for all regimes, even the Iranians. I'm like, let the Ayatollah on Twitter. I'd rather him there than not be there. I'd rather hear what he has to say.
Agreed. I mean, this is where there gets to be a real direct conflict between the purported free speech goals and the business goals. And Twitter, you know, there's more and more reporting about this precarious financial position they're in. Their interest expense with the new debt is going to balloon to about $1 billion a year. Company's operations last year only generated about $630 million in cash flow. Reports that Elon is set to sack about 50% of the workforce, which I understand given the financial straits that they're in right now. But, you know, what you're talking about is what would be good in terms of making this a neutral platform in terms of like it being the digital town square and free speech concerns and all of those sorts of things. They seem to feel that is in conflict, and I don't think that they're wrong with the goals of making Twitter profitable, which has to still worry a lot about what advertisers are going to think about this, because you ain't going to make up the advertiser cash flow with your like $4 million you're going to squeeze out of blue checks.
And that's exactly why I was worried. When you start meeting with the ADL and all these folks, listen, folks, I'm not saying the ADL is always bad, but they have been very censorious and have been now for over a decade, which I have a great big problem with.
Color of change, same thing.
Same thing.
Robinson,
look, this is the issue, which is that when you're meeting with these people, if you're even bound allowing or giving them a foot in the door, they will always go on behalf of censorship, and they will always prioritize and pressure advertisers to not advertise with you if you do not go along with their basically blackmail political agenda. So when I saw that he's meeting with these people and considering, you know, this whole community notes feature, I'm like, man, you're really misunderstanding, in my opinion. Again, look, he's the guy who owns the company, not me, which is that if you actually want to achieve free speech, good debate, and good discourse, frankly, it might be uncomfortable sometimes. You just got to let people say whatever they want.
But again, the profit motive, more than meeting with any of these people, the profit motive is the problem.
It's a big problem.
I think it's impossible to square the circle, but you know, maybe they'll figure it out. He's smarter than I am, so who knows?
I wish him the best.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.